Hello, this is the Oak Bloke, and this is a back-to-back. Let's do two videos um, back to back, and this one about Jubilee. Um, yeah, I mean, I've held this share for a while, and must admit it was sort of a very small part of my portfolio, but um, yeah, I've recently added to Jubilee. Now, some of my rationale was to uh, add to it because of its PGM operation. Um, uh, Now that PGM operation has decided to be put up for sale. So the very reason I bought Jubilee was the reason that, or is now up for sale. So how do I feel about that? Well, I've written this article, so this is none of this is advice. You're just watching this for entertainment, and you make your own investment decisions. But my investment decision, and just talking through my logic. I mean, this article selling the family Plat-ver. Um, if you can't work that one out, is obviously a play on the word silver, and it's the platinum or the PGM. I was going to put Pugamver, but I thought nobody would understand that. Whereas Plat-ver, hopefully you'll get it. But anyway, that's just a bit of fun. Yeah, look, they're selling it for 90 million. And I make the point that, well, 90 million would buy a lot of family silver, and it's got a buyer for its 4 chrome and PGM operations in the western limb of South Africa. So point, stuff in green, that's all being sold. This, which I think is incorrectly tagged as tailings, because it's not, as far as I'm aware, it's not tailings. It's an early stage PGM project. But anyway, that's not up for sale. So these are being sold or proposed for sale. So it's the toll milling chrome recovery plants here, here, and here, with the idea that 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 yeah, the chrome plant at Thutsi is being sold as well. So between them all, they're producing 1.85 million tons of chrome, or not chrome, but chrome concentrate. So this is a kind of fairly low value item that sells for about 85 to $90 a ton. So this is a bulk. Um, but in and amongst this chrome, and it's 42% chrome. So whilst the full price of chrome is more like 300 or 280, Jubilee get a percentage, and this is just, they don't necessarily reveal the specifics, but there's sort of an approximate 40% of the price of chrome, and obviously they're doing this in partnership with mines that have got chrome resource that they're then processing. So they're processing the leftovers or the tails and getting chrome out of them. Now, I mean, reading between the lines, I think it's fair to say that the problem is Jubilee don't own any resources, don't own any mines of their own. They're reliant on their customers, or on their, you could call them customers, you could call them suppliers, the people that supply the ore that they share the revenue with. They've got agreements on what that share should look like, but that's not a permanent state of affairs. Those agreements come up for renewal every now and again. They're worried that their bargaining position is eroding. It is true to say that other competitors, I've noticed Sylvania, Oak Bloke 25 a deer, um, 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 Theresa, are also getting in on the Chrome game. So the stuff that used to be sort of exclusive is no longer exclusive, and that's just the two that I know about. There probably are others. So I think the point is that Jubilee have kind of lost their unique advantage that they once had. Um, So selling off the business at 90 million. And also that South Africa has had some project risk, so there is that element to it as well. That the project risk around South Africa as well is also a factor. So that's feeding into this as well. So 90 million when those things are going on, I guess you could say those are factors to consider. But we also should say, well, how much earnings are we losing? So it's I mean, this was interesting. If I took net profits of the past 5 years, now obviously here I'm taking half a year's profit because we don't know the full year net profit, but what I'm doing is doubling the profit from the first half um, to get 12.6 million, and overall average, so taking all of those together, average 18 million, which obviously for 90 million of earnings over 3 years, that's kind of 5 times earnings, so 5.1 times earnings on a 5-year average, or based upon the most recent, it's 7 years. Now, obviously with PGM prices lifting, just to kind of give you an idea, today the price of platinum is about 1240. So if we just let's bring good old trading economics and markets and bring across commodities, so we can see I think platinum's up, and platinum is 1241, and other so this rhodium's down, palladium's up, and you can see here up 20%, up 20%, up nearly 40% year to date, or up 30% year on year. So it's all kind of, it's a pity. It is a pity, but at the same time, I mean, yes, we might get back to say 15, so that'd be 6 times earnings. So I guess we've just got to trust the fact that the risk is such as it is, that yeah, that Jubilee are not convinced that there's a long-term future for them with South Africa. So who knows? That's basically. And there was an interview where Leon Kurtzer mentions country risk, South Africa country risk, several times. Mentions the erosion of unique advantage, that they've lost the advantage, I think are his words. So 90 million, considering all of that, is actually pretty good. But also, I mean, let's just consider that if we take the balance sheet, so we can see that the PGM and chrome, so 216 of assets, 106 of liabilities. I mean, on the face of it, you'd say, well, that's 110 million of net assets you're giving up. So you're getting 90 million to give up 110. That sounds pretty awful. So it looks like it's a discount, but it's really not. I mean, obviously it changes as well, because these are the last results for the interim. So it actually grows from 110 to 116. But then I say, not so fast. Hang on, we're Jubilee are not giving up Tijati, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and it's estimated 65 million ounces of PGMs. And the reason that they're not is well, it's not included in the deal. Now, this is an early stage project, but it is on the balance sheet at $41 million. Okay, so if you deduct that 41 million off the 110, then that kind of gets you to a net of 70, about 70. Now it's interesting because 65 million ounces, if you sort of stop and think about that, $41 million, 65 million, if that's an accurate number, we don't know that for sure, but we are sort of talking about a resource that is valued at 63 cents per ounce of PGM. And just kind of put that in context, let's go back up to here. a basket that earns you that much, and obviously there is a cost of sale on that, so that's what we see here. Something that earns you, even in a really, 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 really bad year, it will earn you $640 per ounce of the basket. So that's a basket contains rhodium, platinum, palladium, iridium, ruthenium, gold. So you have the six elements within the basket. So and then in a good year, you're looking at maybe 1800 margin per ounce that you are paying less than $1 uh, for that asset. Now, obviously, there are going to be costs to get that asset into production, not least of all that, as far as I can tell, that nobody's actually gone and drilled down to 600 to 1,000 meters. Um, so nobody really knows that there's 65 million ounces. It's an estimate, um, and it's it's potentially, it's got independent appraisals estimate the area could yield up to. I mean, who knows what that contains? Maybe it's 65, maybe it's more, maybe it's less. Even if it's less, let's say it's 10% of the 65, it's only 6.5. I mean, we are still talking about something that is valued at $6.30 for something that you might sell in a good year for $1,800. So there's lots of upside to that asset. 41 million. Um, if I were a billionaire, I wouldn't mind paying 41 billion for something that is going to potentially give me, almost sort of, well, just a very, very nice margin if there's anything like what these independent appraisals say that there is. Obviously, it would be hundreds of millions to develop that into a mine. It would be probably certainly millions, if not low tens of millions to prove the resource, to do a drilling program. I mean, let's say it was 5 to 10 million to prove the resource, to get a JORC resource. But could you take a JORC resource and then sell that? Well, yes, probably. Could you get it to a point where it had a feasibility study? Yes, probably. So is that asset, 41 million asset, potentially worth a lot more? Yes, probably. It's one of these funny things. It's only when somebody says you're not giving up something that you go and check what it's worth. Um, it's sort of nowhere in all of my, and I've written quite a few articles about Jubilee. Nowhere in all of that have I kind of locked in on Tajati that I kind of know about. I mean, maybe I did and I just have forgotten. Um, there is a way. Let's see if I do this Tajati. Yeah. So look, JLP, where's the BS at? um, I don't even remember writing this article. There we go. 40%, 31 million relates to exploration work, which has been capitalized for the Chijati. Yeah, potential 65 million. Um, the subsidiary is on, so JLP own 49% of the subsidiary. That equates to 33 pence per ounce of PGM or golds. Um, yeah, so I was aware of it and I'd forgotten. There we go. So yeah, but it's sort of off most people's radar, to be fair. And of course, Leon Kutzer doesn't really talk about it and go, get all giddy and excited about it. So who knows? I mean, it seems to me that you should either sort of obviously once the copper strategy is underway, to loop back around, or to JV and say to somebody that, obviously with rising PGM prices, up 40% this year, it seems to me that we're heading quite quickly towards a world where people are going to be interested in talking about the family silver or the family Plat-ver, and Tajati seems quite an interesting um, asset to be talking about in a world where there's excitement about PGMs. So the fact that they're disposing of the chrome and the PGM tolling business kind of doesn't bother me that much, because I think the real crown jewels in all of this is actually Tijati, because it's actually PGMs in the ground that they own. So um, yeah, and you know the point here with once you take Tijati out, so that 116 million of assets, South African assets, based on the December update, less the 41, gets you to 75 million of assets that are being sold. So you're selling them at, you know, 14.7 million above what they're on the books for. So that's not a bad outcome, actually, all things considered. And I guess the other point here is, well, how will we recycle the money? What will happen there? So what I talk about here is that obviously the past results for Zambia are pretty horrendous. That they made 0.2 million profit in FY23. That they made 5.1 million profit in FY21, sorry, in FY24, sorry. And this other is the fact that you've got the segmented accounts. If I just quickly show you this, let's just get into the segmented accounts, zooming this. There we go. Segmented accounts. So the bit that says copper and cobalt is Zambia. The bit that says PGM and chrome is South Africa. So this bit by here and this bit by here is what I'm referring to when I say it made profits. And then the other relates to like corporate overheads. So I'm kind of assuming that corporate overheads will just become the burden of copper and cobalt. Obviously, cobalt being a sort of it's really just copper, and then like this all gets offloaded as part of the. Except for, I'm assuming that in and amongst this 216. I'm not assuming, I know that Tijati is in there. So as I say, that's actually a sort of a 15 million premium. So yeah, past profits are pretty low, pretty horrendous. So segmented profits, so, you know, but the point here is that it was during a period of disruption, so power disruption, water disruption. They had all manner of disruption, and don't need to kind of go back over all of that now. They've sorted all of that out, or they tell us they have. So this 90 million would obviously, some of that could be used to further strengthen power, as well as having these power agreements. Well, they could build some solar, they could kind of build some independent power. So that's sort of one idea for the use of the capital. It's also the case that Sable, the Sable refinery, is undergoing, it's having a second tank house, and that will take its capacity up to 14. It's also the case that they are forecasting production of 500 tons per month of copper. And if I take a margin of 3750, which is kind of, if anything, below what they've actually been able to achieve, then we're looking at an EBITDA of 22.7, which is roughly the value of the business they're selling. So yes, we're giving up EBITDA profits, but we're gaining EBITDA profits, or at least EBITDA profits are going to start to feed through. And this is just at the 500. So the 500 being this, 500 a month is 6,000 a year, and that's made up of Munkoyo, and that's made up of this high grade material. And again, these are all the different prospective things that they've acquired. At this margin gives you that EBITDA. Now, that isn't the full picture. So the 22.7 EBITDA isn't the full picture. You've then got Chingola, which is the large waste project. They've sold some of that. Now, that was very interesting for me. They've sold 10 million tons of the 260 million tons, 10 MT of the near 260 MT. valued at 6.75. This will be paid in tranches. Now, okay, yes, it's not all cash up front, but it is, they've already had zero point 0.6 million. They're going to get another 6.15 million over fortnightly tranches. So, okay, yeah, it's not all cash in hand, but who cares? If you apply the same valuation, 6.75, over the remainder, okay, you and obviously you need to take out the cost of Chingola. That gets you to that level of net profit. So 6.75 minus a proportion, 1/26th of that, basically over the whole thing, that's therefore worth this much, if you can find people to buy it, of course. But, we have found somebody to buy some of it. So um, with the basis that it's now a proven, resource that can be, via Jubilee's technology can be commercialized. Maybe there is an appetite for and it's not clear what the commercial terms are on this, that how this will work in practice, because of course it is only Jubilee that has the know-how to process this material. So the fact they've sold it to somebody kind of suggests that they're also selling some know-how to obviously process, maybe to get it to 5%. So there's more upside to it on the back of that. It's also interesting that we see in the RNS keen interest to for metal offtake backed funding, as well as large multinational copper producing entities to partner on the remainder of the project. That's what they say here, that there's these other parties with a keen interest. So as I say, I mean, that seems to me that number there seems reasonably achievable at some point. As I say, maybe not immediately, but Jubilee are not necessarily short of cash. They've just got 90 million, or gonna have 90 million flowing through. For again, the 90 million happens over 3 years if it goes ahead. But we're also told that there was a disposal of 12.3 of non-core assets, and again, that's going to be over a period of time. So the Bank of Jubilee has got all this money coming in from all these different sources. I mean, let's add those sources up. So we've got 90 million coming from South Africa. We've got 41 valuation of Tjate. Now that's obviously not cash coming in, but that is a valuation for an asset that is separate to Zambia, is the point I'm making here. You've got the Chingola, which, as I say, if you extrapolate out the remainder of the 250 million tons, well, that's worth at the same rate 159 million. Non-core assets 12 million. All of that adds up to $302.8 million. Um, um, that 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 converts, sorry, I was trying to think what this was, converts into that many pounds, 224 million pounds, 1.35. The market cap of Jubilee is only 122, and none of that relates to the Rowan, Sable, Munkoyo. None of that relates to any of that. This is sort of basically a load of stuff that, if you can sell it all, then that's double the market price of the share. Plus, if you sort of, and again, I'm only taking the first half year profit, doubling it to get to 8.65 million. Okay, if I apply a 6 times valuation, and then sort of take the excess, okay, which is 101 million, plus that, um, that that basically gets you to 125% upside. So the excess being 101 million. So you're and this is kind of the weird thing about this. You're getting paid. So if you're buying something for 122 million, that's going to generate 224 million. So that's like saying you're getting paid 101 million pounds to own an asset that's going to generate 8.6 million a year, which at 6 times earnings, the value it at 6 times earnings, that you're sort of essentially getting 153 million. So there's, I mean, that is very, very attractive when you look at it that way. That puts this at about a 10 pence valuation. Okay, so that would sort of suggest 133% upside to today's, and 133% upside is about 10 pence. Okay, so it's clear to my mind, based upon the news flow, it is misvalued. But this is based upon the FY 2026, so the period of accounting time that ends in 19 days' time, the 30th of January, 30th of June 2025. So what I'm doing is I'm just extrapolating that out and saying, well, I'm assuming that it's going to generate this level of profit in FY26, and that FY26 in turn is only based on this 500 a month that they reckon that they can do in FY26. So that's 1,000 coming out of Mancoyo for Sable, and that's 400 to 500 coming out of the high grade material at Rowan, where some of that then goes to Sable. On top of all of that, we've got the obviously the exploration going on at Mancoyo. We've got the Project G. There's not really anything being considered for that. We've got the second ROM stockpile. We've got the existing material. We've got the waste rock Shingola, which obviously I've split off. But again, that's sort of 1.54%. So anyway, there's quite a bit of potential upside. But when you've got that amount of cash, now obviously that bit there is not cash, but the rest of it is potential cash. When you've got that much cash coming in, is it unrealistic to think that they can't execute and get to 25,000? So in other words, this 8.6 is based on 500 or based on 6 KTPA. Well, really, we're not going to stay at 6 KTPA. It's going to, I believe, even based on current capacities, move to 25. They've got the ore in the ground. They've got the waste rock. They've got the two plants that are producing. They've got the power. They've got the manpower. They've got water. Like, they've got everything they need. All they've got to do is execute, which obviously isn't guaranteed, but it only has to just work the way it's worked in South Africa. That's the other thing I keep coming back to is, well, they made it work in South Africa. They took it from zero to hero in South Africa. Like Leon Kurtz has said, we, like, back in, and I forget the year, but back in, I think it might have been 2018, we were operating at 50,000 tons a year. Today, we're operating at 1.85 million tons a year. So we've grown exponentially. I think he uses the word exponentially. So all we're talking about is a quadrupling here based on capacity. If it can achieve that, net profit would grow to 30 million, and that's sort of assuming that copper stays at 9.7. Now, I mean, I don't know that it, this today is down 1.9%, and I think this is currently at 9.7. So it's just sort of sticking at today's prices. I mean, will it do that? Will it go up? Will it go down? I mean, you can see there. I mean, it looks like copper could move upwards, but potentially. But let's assume it just stays at this current level. Then we're looking at 30 million profit at that price point, and that's even including things like the deduction for the non-cathode production. So what you'll see here is that I'm actually assuming a 7,900 basket price for copper, not 9,700, because it appears that there's a discount for selling concentrate, the 25% concentrate. So it's this stuff here, copper sulfide. I believe, I don't know, but I believe this sells for below what cathode sells for. So cathode, I believe, sells for pretty much market price, 9,700. This sells for about 80%, 81% of the world copper price. So, and you can see here that this processing, this is going to reach 14, this is going to reach 13, and some of it goes off this way. So overall net 25 is it really is just sort of producing what's already there without any real additional capex, because the capex has already been spent, already been committed. I thought this was interesting as well. I did some digging around to say, well, let's go back in time. Let's kind of like, how much would it be to build another Rowan? In other words, like if we wanted to turn this from 25 to 38, or from 38 to 50, because of course people will wax lyrical about growing this exponentially, all well and good, but that you need capital, you need time. The Rowan took quite a period of time to build. Obviously, building it a second time and a third time, it'll be faster because they'll know what to do, because they just need to copy Rowan. So it should hopefully be a lot faster, because they can just. But this was the capex, £40 million or $48 million. Obviously at 135, I'd say that in dollar terms is now probably more like $55 million. But you get the idea that around 50 million, let's say. And if they were to do that, and again, what I've done here is just extrapolate it out. What would the world look like if they were producing 38 kilotons per annum of copper? So, and I'm assuming that because there would be more sulfide, more copper sulfide, that this percentage would drop even further. So we're now getting 7,566 out of the 9.7. Costs would be at 5.3, which again is kind of pretty much along the lines of what Jubilee themselves have told us. I think they actually talked in terms of 5,241, I think it was. So I've rounded it up. So that kind of gets us to that minus that is an EBITDA of 86. I've kind of extrapolated the depreciation amortization, more than doubled that to get to 3. Taken those other costs per annum, just lifted those. That gets you to about 80 PBT, profit before tax, minus tax, and I'm assuming about 35% tax, gets you to 53. That gets you to an annual profit of about 40 million. So I could see how this could well, not only go up to 10 pence a share, but if it's generating 40 million, which at 38,000, 38 kilotons per annum, it would be at these sorts of prices, using just an extrapolation. I mean, at that level there, 40 million. I mean, you've got to then sort of think, well, 10p is, well, if anything, it's quite cheap. That if we consider that this, in fact, let's see if I've got the at 3.9p and market cap 122 million. Well, if it's 10p, then it's 2.5 times that, so it's about 300 million. So at 300 million, if it's making 40 million a year, and obviously with all of these non-core and these incomes, I mean, if they sold that off at cost at 41, if they sold that off prorated that to get to 160. They're selling that off. They've sold that off. I mean, once you strip out that from the 300 million, that's 10p a share, 300 million. Um, you're kind of back down to um, about what would that be? That would be 2.5 would be 300. So I mean that's 224. So you're paying about 75 million for something that's going to earn you 40 million. So that doesn't make sense either, because that would be less than 2 times price earnings. So yeah, whichever way you look at this, I mean 10p could just be the start. I mean, I'd say you probably want to value this at something like at least 6 times earnings. So that would value it at 240. Well, if you sort of then take 240 plus 220, that's 465. I mean, that is near enough a quadrupling. So that would be more like 16 pence, which, to be fair, if we go back in time, I mean, I can remember I can remember a time when this was about 16p. I'm pretty sure, I don't think I'm going mad here, but I'm pretty sure that if we go back to 2021, 2022, maybe in the days when PGM prices were a lot higher than they are today. Yeah, there we go. It was at its zenith, 21.9p. Imagine buying at that price and it being, what was it, 3p was the low point, 3 pence there. So that's a huge fall, isn't it? But yeah, at 3.9p, I can see that a lot of the negativity of the past is in the past. There's some good news in the present. They've just got to execute in the near future, and the re-rate will happen as far as I can see. But none of this is advice. This is just me saying it as I see it. You make your own investment decisions. But if you enjoyed what you heard today, I mean, this article will be published in the next day or so on the Oak Bloke Substack. So yeah, hopefully that's been a useful video to watch, and look out for other videos coming from me in due course. And Oak Bloke signing off. Cheerio for now. Cheerio.